Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see all of your faces here with us. This is our first virtual Future in Focus event that we are hosting with the New York City Central Labor Council and the United Federation of Teachers. My name is Janella Hines. I am the Secretary Treasurer of the New York City Central Labor Council. I am also Vice President for Academic High Schools of the United Federation of Teachers, and I am proud to join all of you here today for a conversation about unionized careers in New York City. This afternoon, you're going to have an opportunity to hear from people who are currently working in these careers, and they will talk to you about why unionism is important and what collective bargaining is, and how our voices together make a difference in the workplace. If you have any questions, you can type them into the Facebook so that we can get questions to our panel as we move on a little later. Before I turn it over to our panelists, let me just give greetings on behalf of Vinny Alvarez, who is the president of the New York City Central Labor Council. And I'm going to say hi on Michael Mulgrew's behalf, although he should be joining us shortly. He's going to come in and say hello as well. So without any further ado, let me turn this over to Xiomara Loarte, who is from the New York City Central Labor Council. She is our community liaison. So, Xio.
Hi, everyone. We're really excited to bring this program to you. Typically, we have an in-person event, but with everything going on, this is just the safest way to get this information out. So, Janella, are we good to start the panel, or should we start with opening remarks first?
I don't see. Why don't we start with the panel?
Cool. Great. Okay, so like Janella said, my name is Xiomara Loarte. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator over at the New York City Central Labor Council. I'd like to introduce our amazing panel. So we're going to go around and I'm going to have folks introduce themselves, their name, the organization that they're representing, and just a really quick, the type of workers that you represent. So I can call on folks and we'll start from there. Gus, do you want to start us off? Oh, Gus, you're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gus Diamantis. I'm with the Finishing Trades Institute of New York, part of District Council 9. We represent the painters, glaziers, drywall finishers, metal polishers, and paper hangers unions all across New York City, Westchester, Long Island, and up into upstate New York on the eastern half of New York State. So I'm happy to be here. It's a great opportunity to meet everyone. We love participating every year, so just happy to try out with this new format.
Thanks, Gus. Steph?
Hi, everyone. My name is Steph Pettit. I am a paralegal at Legal Services NYC. I work in the Bronx as a paralegal. I'm also a delegate in my shop. We are part of LSSA 2320, and we represent legal workers in New York City. We're part of the larger UAW union as well. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Steph. Joe?
That would be me. I'm Joe Colangelo. I'm president of SEIU Local 246. We are members of the mechanics and auto trades for the city of New York. We fix all the city equipment, police, fire, sanitation, DEP, DOT, you name it, we fix it. New York City, one of the largest non-military motor fleets in the world. And it's a great career. And I grew up in Queens, New York, went to aviation high school, and that's where I got my love for mechanics. And it led me to where I am today. So 39 years and counting. So I'm doing pretty good.
Thanks, Joe. Jack and Jen, I know that you guys are both from IATSE Local 798. So please, whoever goes first, doesn't matter, just introduce yourselves.
Sure, I'm John Jack Curtin, Secretary Treasurer of Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Local 798. We represent makeup artists and hairstylists in film, television, commercials, and live theatrical on the East Coast of the United States. Happy to be here, and it's my first time.
And I'm Jen Bullock, and I'm a hairdresser by craft, and then I've started working in the upper levels of the union as an assistant business representative and live theatrical trustee and executive board member.
Thank you, guys. Karen? Ooh. Sorry, Karen, don't seem to be able to hear you. Okay, well, sorry, Karen. Let me try to fix that on our end. But for folks who don't know, Karen Fisher is with local AFM Local 802, which is the musicians union. So really excited to have Karen. Leah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Hosted. I'm a school secretary with the New York City Board of Education, and I'm also part of the school secretary's executive committee, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks, Leah. And Eric?
Thanks so much for having us. Eric Anticol, Non-Traditional Employment for Women. My colleague Denise Doyle is also here, though I think the Zoom has given her some audio trouble. It's great to see so many brothers and sisters in the labor movement here. Gus Diamantis and others. I could use some of the members of the Hairdressers Union to come to my house these days. But a little bit about new. We are a pre-apprenticeship program for women and non-binary folks who are interested in getting into a skilled trade career. We primarily work with the building trades unions and their amazing apprenticeship programs, as well as amazing organizations like Con Edison, the MTA, National Grid, and big building management organizations like Cushman and Wakefield, JLL, and others. So really happy to be here. Thanks again.
Karen, do you want to try and see if we can hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, cool. I changed my microphone. Okay, my fault. So thanks for the, the introduction. Yes, I'm the financial vice president of Local 802, American Federation of Musicians in New York City, and we are part of the arts and entertainment industry. So all the musicians in New York, well, not all of them are members, but we try to make all of them members, we hope. And so everybody from Lincoln Center to freelance orchestras to wedding bands to Broadway shows, church jobs, you name it, they are all our members and we represent them. And this is my first panel, so very happy to be here, looking forward to it.
Great. Sterling, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, my name is Sterling Roberson. I'm Vice President for Career and Technical Education High Schools for the United Federation of Teachers. I'm in partnership in the high school division of Team High Schools with Janella, who's our academic vice president, as she indicated. I was happy to be here. The Future in Focus is important, obviously, to us in the UFT, and for me, by way of trades. We're sort of like the secondary space in which we try to prepare young people for entry into the trade. So I'm just happy that this Future in Focus forum is put together, even virtually. It's a great thing and it's great for all of our kids, and I'm just happy to be a part of observing and listening.
Great, thank you for that, Sterling. Okay, so we're gonna move right ahead. Did I miss anyone? I know that Denise is having some issues. Denise, just give me a heads up when you're ready, and we'll bring you into the fold. But we'll kick this off. So one of the things I want to get started with, and I think it really kind of touches on the purpose of this event, by a show of hands, how many of you were familiar with the labor movement before becoming a union member? Okay, so a good number of you. That's great. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think that I was super familiar with the labor movement in high school. But, you know, that's great to see that a good handful of our panelists were. Does anyone want to speak on, you know, how they became familiar before, you know, before becoming a union member? Go ahead, Jen.
Well, I'm from San Francisco. Growing up in California, my grandfather actually did a lot of business with Cesar Chavez when he was wandering for the grocery stores. And then my mother's a public school teacher. So labor's just been in my life pretty much since I was born.
I'll chime in. I'm a child of the 60s. So for me, growing up, everybody was in a union. It was unheard of if you weren't in a union. So different than young people today. I worked in a small auto parts store with 12 people, and we were in a Teamster local. Everybody was in there. We had dental, eyeglass, medical. So I've literally grown up in the labor movement because that's all I really knew. And unfortunately, nowadays, like you point out, Ziamara, a lot of these young kids don't really understand the importance of the labor movement and how great it is to bring unity to the workers and give the workers a voice instead of management a voice. That's what we're here for.
Thanks for that, Joe. I see that we've been joined. Janella, do you want to do the honors of this intro?
Thanks, Theo. Let me introduce our newest member of the panel, Michael Mulgrew, who is the president of the United Federation of Teachers and a member of the executive board of the New York City Central Labor Council. Michael, would you like to bring greetings to the folks who are watching us now?
I would love to, Janella, and thank you for once again doing a great work to arrange this. These are really fun times we're all living in right now, but this is important because I think that everything we're going through leads us all to understand that it's all of our responsibilities to make sure that we have a better future. And sometimes that leads down a difficult path, but that difficult path is worth it as long as we get to a better place. And when it comes to unions and your future and your work, this is what I will tell you. I've been a member of, I was a Teamster, I was a carpenter, and I am a teacher. And I've been a member of each of those as a unionist. And I will tell you right now, in terms of the work that we do as a union, it's not just about protecting our workers, which is important, and making sure that they have a voice that is heard and respected, and that we can go to a negotiations and not being told take it or leave it. All of that is important, but so much of the work that we get to do politically really does help to change the world. And that's another part of the union movement that a lot of people don't talk about. And actually a lot of people try to make sure that people don't understand that that's unions together. It's not just about our work. That's an important piece, and we focus on that a lot, as I said. But the other piece is once you get a large group of people together with a common interest, then of course they start to talk about things they'd like to change, not just at their workplace, but things they'd like to influence in terms of the political process and policies where they live. Because all workers, we live where we work. And that's just the reality of it. So it's really powerful both to think this through, because when I was leaving high school, I was fortunate enough to go directly into a union. I went right into the carpentry union at that point, and I never really understood the power of it until I was in it. And I did have a lot of friends who didn't have that opportunity. And to me, it became very apparent that the only way you're actually going to be treated fairly is if you're all working together. So I'm glad we're doing this today. I'm glad we are continuing to move our school system, and I can't thank you all for participating, because all of our work as educators and all of these people on the panel volunteering their time today, for us as educators, what we do, what really helps us is we love watching our students grow, learn, graduate, and then we get to see them as they go out into the world. And a lot of you always do come back and talk to us and tell us about all the difficulties you're having, but at the same time, all the great things that are happening in your life. And that's what we want, for more and more of you to always be able to say, there are a lot of great things happening in my life. So thank you all again for being here. And thank you for all the people who put this together and have volunteered their time to be here.
Thank you for that. Okay, so now that we have everyone on board, I'm going to go ahead and move us forward in this panel. I really kind of want to dive deep into how folks on this panel got into their careers. So I'm just going to ask flat out, how did you get involved in your career? But also, did you think you were going to be doing this when you were in high school? And to anyone who wants to chime in, feel free.
Yeah, I'll start. The question is, did I ever think I would be a vice president of a labor union? The answer is absolutely never in my wildest dreams. I'm a musician, I'm a clarinetist, and all I ever wanted to do was be a clarinetist and play music professionally. And I was very lucky to be able to do that for about 20 years. But things happen in life, and things change and people change, and I never thought that I would kind of want to do something else. And I reached a point in my 40s where I kind of just wanted to branch out and do some other things. And I came to the union. I was a union member, but wasn't really very involved. And I was kind of reaching a crisis point in a couple areas in my life, including professionally as a musician. And my father, I was visiting my parents, and he just said something off the top of his head. He said, well, there are good jobs at the union. And I said, what are you talking about? I didn't really know anything about what was going on there. And I happened to be on our 802 website, and I saw that there was a job opening for a business representative in the concert department, which was exactly right up my alley. And I applied, and immediately, I was in. And so I started doing business rep work, and I really, I had the music part down, but the union part I had to learn. And I went to the Cornell Labor Leadership Institute, and it was a learning process, but I really enjoyed that work. And then I never thought I would run for office, and again, things change, and I said, you know what, it's time, and we need some changes here, and we got a team together, and we did. So I'm a year and a half into the job, and never thought I'd be dealing with this stuff during a pandemic. So this has been incredibly challenging. I know for everybody, our members right now are especially hurting because we're basically out of work. Arts and entertainment are going to be phase 4, first out, last back. But we're going to hang in there, and we're protecting our members as best we can. And I'm really excited. It's a very challenging position, but never thought I would be doing it. Never. So it's pretty cool. Life does interesting things to you and your career.
Thanks, Karen. Jack, I saw that you wanted to add.
Sure. When I was in high school, my mom actually owned a salon. So I basically grew up in the industry and then was completely dissuaded from becoming part of the industry. I ended up going to school for fine and performing arts, and then slowly but surely came back around to hairstyling, which was the first love I had wanted to do ever since it began. So it's a very odd, circuitous route that I took to get here. And then accidentally becoming a union activist by just being on set and being represented and wanting to be more involved was a really great transition into what I'm doing now.
Go ahead, Steph.
Thanks. So yeah, I also did not see myself in this position, one, as a paralegal, and second, as a union member. All of my jobs in high school and college were restaurant work. I truly did not have a connection to, the idea of like taking those friendships, those like issues you have at work and making them into something bigger, like a collective action, until we had like a little drive to try to raise the minimum wage in one of my workplaces in college. And the management came down really hard on us. And it was at that point that I started connecting with the labor movement, what was going on around me, and learning that there's a lot of history to the labor movement, and that there's formal organizations that do the thing that we were trying to do that have a strong track record. So that was totally new to me. And then I became a union organizer with AFT. I worked with Unite Here as a union organizer for a while. I was a researcher at the AFL-CIO, and coming up against the legal part of unions, I got really interested in that. And that's how I ended up taking all the knowledge that I had gained from organizing and social justice work to becoming a paralegal and working with attorneys to support their work. And we do community lawyering, so we work directly with communities, to low-income communities specifically, to help them out. Yeah, it's been really rewarding and satisfying, and I'm really grateful to have such a good union job now.
Awesome. So really quick, we're getting some feedback in the comments of this stream. And a lot of what we're hearing right now is if folks on the panel could break down terms for the students who are watching. So for instance, the name Teamsters came up, and they don't know what Teamsters are. So Joe, can you just elaborate really quick on the Teamsters? I know that you were a member, but just really quickly, just for students who don't know who the Teamsters are.
Okay, so when I say Teamsters, right, what does that mean to someone? Teamsters is an international, really. It's a so what that means is there's a larger union, which is the Teamsters, who historically represented truck drivers. That's how that union really was formed. It was a transport union. It dates way back. So Teamsters then expanded into other industries and organize the workers in those other industries. So when you use the word Teamster, it's really talking about the international, but they represent workers in many different industries. Currently, I'm in SEIU. What is that? Service Employees International Union. That is the international, but the union represents all different aspects from healthcare to hospital workers, but also workers like myself, which are in the auto trades industry. So that's the international. So when somebody uses the word like Teamsters or the Machinist Union or IATSE, these are the groups that usually historically represented a certain sector of the labor movement. And so that's where the term, when I use the word Teamster, because somebody's unfamiliar with how unions work, it's really, that's the international, I would say, but they represent different sectors in the labor movement. So that's really what the word uses. But that was the first union I was in, was a Teamster local. That's what I meant. Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Does anyone else want to add how they got involved in their careers, and if this was something that they thought about in high school? Someone who hasn't gone yet?
So back in high school, no, I didn't see myself doing that because I was a shy girl. So no way I would be an advocate for anyone, not even myself. Fast forward a couple years later, I started working for the United Federation of Teachers as a secretary in the pension department. And then I'm like, wow, they're really working for their members. Then a couple years later, I became a secretary with the New York City Department of Education. So now the UFT became my union. And once I became a secretary, even though the UFT represents secretaries, I realized that secretaries were not treated fairly. They were not treated as UFT members. So I'm like, no, we got to change this. So that's where I came in and I joined the exec board. And I'm basically like a voice for secretaries, like towards the union. I'm between the secretaries in the school and the union. So I'm looking forward to working more with secretaries and being that voice for them. But looking back, I would not have been who I am today.
Thanks for that, Leah. Really quick, Jen and Jack, every time I hear of the makeup and hairstylist union, I'm always like so intrigued. But how did you guys get into that? Did you know in high school? Like, did you take cosmetology classes in high school? Was that something that you kind of just picked up along the way, and that was something that you made a career out of? Can one of you guys just kind of speak to that?
Yes, Jack and I both have cosmetology licenses, and for application as a hairdresser, you need to have one. You can get them at different points in your life. I got mine right before I went to college because I knew if I finished college, I didn't want to do any more school. How I got in was I wanted to do something. I was an artist, and I was a special effects makeup artist, and I was a wig builder. And I wanted to see the world, and I didn't have enough money to do so. So I knew that I wanted to tour. So I focused more on the hair part because I had always seen the theatrical tours come through, the Broadway shows coming through, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to go with them. And then later on, I actually took a break from doing hair because I was just, you just have a moment in life and you're like, I need a change. So I ran away with rock bands and started being a tour coordinator. And then I realized that it was a lot more fun to help make the rules and negotiate rather than just be somebody that has to follow them. So when I came back to New York from touring with bands is when I decided to get more involved with the local, and I started as a steward and then gradually moved up the chain, and now I'm here.
Thanks for that, Jen. Jack, do you want to add kind of like your story?
Sure. I actually also started in the touring world, and it's one of the big things that made me very pro-union because I started non-union touring. And that meant very long hours. We would do 30, I think our biggest was 33 shows in 31 days in 30 cities. And that is grueling work, and I'm glad to have the protection of the IATSE, which now says there are work rules and conditions for which we work under. Like I said earlier, I went to college for fine and performing arts, and it was after all of this that I finally went back to school to get my license to start working in hair and makeup. And I have always been a wig builder or a wig maker, and then just translating those talents onto Broadway, and then translating those into film and television. There's an arc that everyone starts to follow, and most of us start out in theater, but not all of us. A lot of us also start out in salon work and then decide to try to figure out how to get in the entertainment field. So there are many doors to this, but unfortunately so many times they're hidden that you sort of need to see have somebody drag you in, so to speak.
Thanks for that. Denise, I see that you're with us. Super excited to have you. Do you wanna kind of add in how you got into the career with non-traditional employment for women? Oop, you're on mute.
I got into non-traditional employment for women from I'm a District Council 9 painter. So there was an opening at New, and I applied for the opening, and I became the recruiter at New. And I advocate for women to go into all of the building and construction union apprenticeships, facilities maintenance, and public utility careers, as well as still linked very closely with District Council 9 painters and allied trades.
Thanks, Denise.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that shout out. Nice segue. Gus, I haven't forgotten about you. I see you, and I haven't heard about how you got into your career. So do you want to give us some background on that?
Yeah, we talk to, we attend a lot of career fairs, and we always talk to high school students, tell them, pretty much all of us, or most of us have a roundabout way of getting into where we are now. My path was kind of all over the place. I didn't know what I wanted after high school. Being a first generation American, my parents were immigrants. Their biggest thing was you have to go to college, school. So at the time it was just, getting to school, and didn't know what I really wanted to do. Worked my way through school, through college by being in construction, different labor, plumbing. I did waitering, which I was not good at. And, just pay the bills. Never really heard about unions that whole time, never was really familiar with them. But working on one of the construction jobs I was on, I would see a group, people really banded together, worked well, had a lot being taken care of. I saw someone over there, you know, they would have their regular breaks. We were kind of not treated that way, you know, and working crazy hours. And then I started seeing big differences in safety, the hours worked and what we were getting. So when I started trying to find out about it, I was on a bridge job, and you know, I kind of stumbled into the Bridge Painters Union, started working there, and kind of really loved what I did. I saw there was people there for you, fighting for you, working for you in all aspects, instead of you trying to do, let me figure out where to put my retirement money, let me figure out how to work out my health insurance. All of that was part of your benefit package, as well as wages. So it really helped a lot. And then moving from there, I was opening to be an instructor, which is something I always kind of like doing. Even on the job sites, I'd always train and help people out. And then when I saw that opening, I took it, became a trainer in District Council 9 in the Finishing Trades Institute. And from there, you know, it was just, you know, continued going from there and bringing new people in, and just, you know, giving them hopefully that opportunity that that I got towards a career. And like, you know, some other panelists said, it was, there's a lot more to it behind the fact. We get involved in a lot of activism. We have a lot of different committees that are part of it. So, you know, you'll always find a place for yourself in any of those committees, and do something that really makes a difference. We do a lot of charity work with our apprenticeship programs, you know, so while you're learning, you're doing things for your community, and you're, you know, getting yourself into a career. So all of that is really meaningful, and pushes us all forward.
Thanks, Gus. Sterling, can you round us out before we move on to the next question?
Absolutely. My journey, I never thought I'd be involved in education, but out of high school, my background is electronics and engineering. But out of high school, the city they knew in the early 80s there was going to be a shortage of vocational teachers at that time. So they created a program, a pipeline program at the teachers for career and technical education teachers or vocational teachers at the time when I started. And they put together a package where we were paid, we were part of a union, United Federation of Teachers. We actually received 90% of the salary of a teacher, full benefits, vacation, everything else at 17 years old. And ultimately that became my path into the union. But then I had a building rep where we became sort of active, who just invited me in. I was just teaching in a school, and she says, you know, you should be very actively involved in being a part of the union. You do well, you use the benefits and everything else. And you know, and as a pilot, the reason I say that as a pilot, that's one of the nation's most successful recruitment, training, and retention program for career and technical education teachers in the nation. So even though I oversee it on the U of T side, what happens is that program has been around for 37 years, and I'm just part of being on the inaugural group. That's how I came to be involved in terms of in the union and being active in it. So I was here since I was 17 years old when I was recruited out of high school.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sterling. Now, I know that at various different points, panelists have mentioned certifications, licensing. Joe, you went to a specialized high school. For those viewers that are watching, you know, different levels of education and training, can each of you just quickly go over what qualifications or what you need in order to be effective in your field?
You want me to start? Okay, so to become a mechanic for the city of New York, let me start two different things. I started out wanting to be an aircraft mechanic. In order to fix aircraft, you have to be a licensed mechanic by the Federal Aviation Administration. So Aviation High School, which is in Queens, New York, which started out in the 1930s and 40s, teaching people how to fix aircraft. So you need a license. So I went to that school, it was a trade school, to get my airframe and power plant licenses, 2 licenses you need. With that, I also gained experience. So to work and to transition to work for the city of New York, in order to become an auto mechanic, to take the exam, you need 5 years of called journeyman experience. So if you went to a trade school in the city, if you went to Edison High School, Automotive High School, Aviation High School, Brooklyn Tech, all of those schools are considered 2 years of credit towards your 5 years of journeyman experience, okay? So if you work out, either work for the city or work out in the real world for 3 more years, you have the 5 years of qualifying experience. So that's how you get into my trade to get into city work. You need that 5 years. But then again, you can get it any various different ways. But, you know, for the students now that are looking to go to high school, if you go to any one of the trade schools, you've already started your stepping stone, regardless of what career you want to go into. A lot of these trade schools offer experience to become a carpenter, an electrician, a plumber. So there's a lot of different things out there. Edison High School has a lot of that. So that's really how you start. That's how I started.
Thanks, Joe. Steph, can you carry us through?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a paralegal, which means I do work that supports lawyers in our organization to carry out their court cases. It also means we do a lot of community education. The way I got to this job was, I mean, for this job, I think you need a college degree, but for other jobs in our organization, in our union, you don't need a college degree. You just need a high school degree or an equivalent GED. And you get a lot of training on the job, which is really great. And that's something that we strive for in our union as well, to give a lot of that training so people can be ready for their job and move up as well. And most people, when you start at the job, unless you're an attorney, you make a higher salary, you need a law degree for that. Most other positions start at about the same rate of payment, and it's a pretty good job. It's like a $49,000 job starting, and there's a lot of young people in our organization, a lot of young people in our union, and they do or do not have college degrees and are making the same amount of money, and it's amazing. I mean, personally, I didn't feel like I had to sacrifice anything to get that experience that they talk about all the time, that you usually have to take pay cuts for. I just went in and was able to make a decent wage with the college degree that I have and my background in organizing. So it's not as like, you know, you need 5 years of training, those kinds of things, unless you're an attorney, of course. So yeah, it's a little more flexible.
Thanks, Steph. Sterling? Any qualifications or any training that you needed to be effective at what you do?
In terms of teaching, one of the things that obviously we have to be skillful and qualified in our trade area. So one of the things that the program offered was allowing students to actually not just get your certification in your set area. It was also paid for your college. So getting your degree was an important factor. And the reason why being in the union became important is because in order to get your degree, the union, the UFT negotiated with the college that if you have your certification or your industry cert, it would give you 30, and passing a test, you would get 30 credits toward your degree. That's very important to see as an additional benefit for being a part of the union, and that's a huge cost savings. And for me, that was great that you only had to do the city paid for, so only out of pocket towards my degree, I only paid for 30 credits. All of the other ones was also covered by the union. And while you're working in the trade and getting all of that experience, it became very important. And what was great about the program for me that I think what's important for the almost over 1,000 CTE teachers in New York City, and maybe probably about 500 or almost 600 that came through the program that are now teaching in New York City to this day. One of the things that we learned is that if it wasn't for the union and being a part of the union, that brotherhood and sisterhood that we have as educators, that was a qualifier. Being a part of the union, that was part of the qualifications for us to actually get in. Most people aren't getting the job, but that job was being part of the union was a qualification. And I think that outside of your education, outside of your certification, it's also being a part of the union was a qualification that got us in, which was great.
Thanks, Sterling. Can my team from NEW, I know that NEW is a pre-apprenticeship program, but for folks who don't know what a pre-apprenticeship program means, Eric and Denise, can you guys walk through NEW and some of the work that you do and some of the qualifications that you help prepare folks with?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And I'll just first note that Gus and Denise are the real experts on, apprenticeship and how that works. And Denise, of course, been with NEW for, going on 15 years now, if I'm not mistaken. But in terms of, I'll start with the certifications. The beautiful thing about pre-apprenticeship is that the only certification that you need in order to come and work with us is a high school diploma or a high school equivalency. We, along with our partners in the actual apprenticeship programs, will help you get all of the actual certifications that you need for free. Well, I shouldn't say for free because, your labor is the one that funds that, but you yourself do not have to pay out of pocket for any of the certifications. What I will say is that apprenticeship, is the unsung hero of career opportunities, especially for folks who are looking for a skill set that will never be taken away, that has great union backing and an amazing community behind it. You heard Gus talking about it before, and there's a lot of push, rightly so, I think, for folks to be looking at college and college degrees. But the beautiful thing about apprenticeship is that union members all around the city know exactly how to do the craft that they were raised to do by the people who came before them, and you can follow in those footsteps with no college debt. Starting wages for us that average $19 an hour plus excellent benefits. I know you all might be a little too young to be thinking about what benefits really mean, but trust me, they're important. And topping out, after you complete your apprenticeship, which means that you finished, somewhere between 2 and 6 years of apprenticeship, depending on what trade you love. You're making somewhere between $80,000 a year and $150,000 a year, and that's before overtime. So there's incredible opportunity just by doing a pre-apprenticeship program, which can essentially reserve you a spot with one of the 16 or 17 building trades partners that we all work with. So I'll leave it there. Just one final note is there's a new organization, the Apprenticeship Readiness Collective, that we as NEW, along with 3 other pre-apprenticeship programs in New York City have formed. So, we're here to serve women and the non-binary community, but there's plenty of other pre-apprenticeships out there that we can help connect you with if you're from a different group. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Before we get to Q&A, does anyone else from the panel want to add about qualifications, licensing, and certifications that are necessary in their fields? Don't be shy. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, I guess I could add that at least for my position as a paralegal, something that really mattered was caring a lot about your community and showing like an engagement with your community. The communities that we work with, as well as having good writing skills. If you like to write, if you like to advocate for yourself or for other people, you have strong feelings about things, about justice, about changing things for the better. If you speak another language other than English, that's another really big qualification. So if you're bilingual or more, that's hugely needed in a legal field. Because there's lots of folks in New York City who don't speak English as their first language. So yeah, you can bring a lot of things to a job like in legal services, and it's not necessarily just, I need to be an attorney. You can do a lot of other things to contribute in this position.
Thanks. Karen, I see you. What's up?
Yeah, I'll just say for the performing arts, there aren't any rules or qualifications necessarily, except unless you're going to go into teaching, then obviously you'd need those certifications. But you need to be really, really, really good at what you do. So choosing your teacher is very important right from the beginning, right from even elementary school. But in college, if there are any of you out there who are thinking of going into music or acting, your teacher is really going to be your mentor and your guide. So that's going to be the most important person in your life for quite a while. Yes, the more education you have, of course, the better. Most musicians have a bachelor degree from an arts institution like Juilliard or conservatory, and most have masters and even doctorates. So, but there's a lot of ancillary professions. You can be a music copyist. I mean, you can go on, and for that you really need a pretty high level of education, a real deep detail about how music is written and theory and all kinds of stuff. But to be a professional, that's the number one thing. Really, really good, and practice a lot.
Thanks, Karen. Janella, I hear that you're going to help us out with these Q&As. You want to kick us off?
Yes, I do. So we've gotten a couple of questions on Facebook for the panel. And one question is, what kind of messages or experiences might have helped you to get more directly to where you are now? Like when you were, because some of the people that are watching us are in high school right now, right? They're 14, 15, 16. Are there messages that at 15 or 16 or 17 that would have helped put you on the right path and lead you more directly to where you are right now?
If you want it, go for it and don't stop. I grew up in California. I wanted to live in New York. I wanted to work on Broadway. And, California's not that close. And it took a long road. And I remember having jobs where I was a hairdresser on a regional theater production, and I made $300 for 3 weeks of work. And that was like, okay, you start there, and then you get the next job, and you get the next one, and the better one, and the better one. And if you know that you want it, and you're going to do it, and that's what you want, don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
That's awesome, Jen. Anyone else?
Thank you. Any other words of wisdom?
Find out what you love to do and just do it. I went to aviation high school. I wanted to fix planes. I lived in Florida. And every day that I went to work, even though it wasn't a lot of money, I just loved it. I loved it. I mean, it led me back to New York when I got the job with the city, but I always liked being a mechanic. And it led me to where I am. It's been a very satisfying career, and we make a really good salary besides. That's the only advice I would give somebody. If you have a passion, do it. Like what Jennifer just said, just follow that passion, and it'll take you to where you're gonna go. You know what I mean? Just don't do things you don't like just because you need to make money, because that'll never be satisfying. It will never satisfy you. Okay? Do things you like because you like to.
Thank you, Joe. Go ahead, Gus.
Just a quick thing, and I love that what Joe brought up. But the only other thing I would say is definitely reach out, look what's out there. There's so many opportunities. There's so many things that are out there to get you engaged, to find out what you want to do, because sometimes it's hard to figure out what you like and what you don't like. Sometimes figuring that out is a great way to go as well. I start with something like, I'll say it again, and sorry for anyone, but I was a horrible waiter. When I started doing it, I realized, wow, this is not, not the path for me to start in. And, but sometimes you get that as well. You start with something, but there are opportunities out there. Pre-apprenticeship programs for us is huge, where you can get in, you get a little taste of it, 6 weeks of all the different programs that are available to you in the construction trades. And you get to see what you like. With us, we had that little thing of, a lot of parents push for college. If that's not some direction you're looking to go to, but you would still like to have that option, a lot of apprenticeship programs also have college degrees. You get credit towards college by completing and graduating the apprenticeship program, and then you could finish towards getting your associates. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You're getting credits towards your college degree while learning a trade and working and not getting into debt. So, there's a lot of things out there for everybody. Just really look around and see what's there for you, what's available.
Thanks, Gus. We have another question here about, let me read the question for you. When people say it's hard to get into unions, has that been your experience? Is that true? And could you share with people what the process is like?
Janella, if you like, I can start us off, as it is our job to get people into unions.
That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. So in my experience, that is the prevailing narrative. Everyone comes to us and says, they honestly, we 20% of the people who come to our program or so, they say, oh my God, I thought this program was fake, because you say it's so easy, but it can't possibly be that easy. And I'll say, these are extremely competitive jobs, careers, I should say, because they are so good. They pay so well. They have such great communities. They're so stable. So there's a lot of people who want to get in. That said, if you are persistent, and if you come to the union directly, or if you go to a pre-apprenticeship program, I'll only speak for the building trades here. If you come to one of these programs that the building trades sponsor and offer and partner with, you will get in very quickly if you are ready. And if you're not ready, we'll continue to work with you. Just to give you a sense, every year there's a bunch of people who graduate from our program. I'd say maybe 10, 15, who get into a union within a week of graduating from our program. Our program's 7 weeks long. I know that feels like a lot, but to just wait 2 months to get into a union where you're going to be, not just making middle-class wages, but often upper middle-class wages, that's pretty quick. And on the average is 6 months. That's pretty quick too. And if it takes you 2 or 3 years, us and the other pre-apprenticeship programs, we're behind you. We're going to help you get to the point where you are ready, even if it takes 5 or 6 tries to help you get in, because eventually you will. So, if it's what you want, you will get in.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else want to share their experiences about getting into the union? Was it challenging? Was it difficult? Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, my experience was a little bit different. My job, when you get hired, at my job at Legal Services, you become part of the union as a matter of course. So you don't have to have any specific like membership in the union before you get the job. You just automatically join it. So that, yeah, I guess it's pretty simple in that way, but it's definitely different.
Thanks, Steph. Gus, would you like to share?
Yeah, we get that a lot. We hear that question a lot, but, it's hard to get in. Eric had some fantastic points, and that's why pre-apprenticeships do help in that regard, where they go through that program, they get that level of training, and then they have the opportunity to directly apply to pretty much any trade they're really interested in, construction trade. With us, with apprenticeship, the reason is it is Department of Labor registered programs, New York State Department of Labor. So to make it fair to everyone across the board, it's general recruitment, which means everyone across the city can apply. So you that's why you got that kind of trade-off. A lot of people say, well, how come I just can't get in right away? But then on the other side of it, well, the process is to make it as fair and equitable to as many people as possible from all walks of life, all over the city, so they can come in, they apply on that recruitment day, and then it's a random pick of cards, and then people get in and go through the process, and that's how they get pulled into the union. So it does take some time, but I wish we had thousands of jobs ready and everybody was union so we could get everyone in right away. That's our dreams and our goals for the future, to bring everyone to get, careers and insurance and benefits and everything they can get. But until that time becomes reality, we're pulling in as many people as we can into our programs. It just, to make it as fair to everybody, you have to have open for the whole city. And, you kind of have a random picks lottery to bring people in. So there's, smaller groups at a time may come in. Our unions, we have 6 trades. So we do a lot of recruitment. But during the course of 1 year, we may bring in over 150 people, 200 people throughout the various trades. So we do keep trying to get through that list, and we do go through it rather quickly.
So based on your pathway to your career, there are going to be different ways for you to join the union, right? And when, like, if you are working in a school building here in New York City and you have the option of becoming a member of the United Federation of Teachers, you can sign the card if you desire, and we think there are benefits to you doing that, but that is not a requirement, right? And so there are all of these narratives about the labor movement and about what it means to be a unionist. And that's why it's so important for us to have these conversations here where we can debunk some of the ideas that are prevailing narratives about our movement. I have another question about NOC decertification. Is there anyone who can talk about the careers that could be accessed through a NOC decertification? Is that too specific a question? Okay, well, we will pause on that one and we'll get the answer to the person who asked that question. We have another question about suggestions we could give to the educators who are on this panel, whether we have teachers or school counselors or advisors and parents. What advice would you give to the adults who are guiding these students along the way to let them know about the labor movement and about unionized careers?
Can I chime in? Yeah, I mean, listen, any unionized job, why is it so competitive? Because it's so competitive because the benefits are so good. But even in the city of New York, to come to work for the city of New York, you have to take a competitive exam. So anybody coming into the city wanting city employment, regardless of the job, has to go through an application process and may have to take an exam. So no matter what you're going to strive for in life, there's going to be things that you're going to have to get around, hurdles that you're going to have to get over. So with regards to, advising young students, like I said before earlier, if you have a passion, you follow that passion. And if there's a union that represents that, whether it be my career or one of the building trades and want to be a carpenter, because that's kind of my area of expertise, if you will, you'd have to pursue that. That could take some time. But, as far as giving advice goes, like we said earlier, sometimes college, you heard a new saying, right? College is for everybody. I know on the outside, it's very hard to get people into the trades. It's very hard to recruit people for auto mechanics nowadays. Students don't want to be mechanics. And let me tell you something. City of New York mechanics base salary is $90,000 a year. They start off with $85,000 a year. They come in as a service worker making almost $45,000 a year. I mean, these are careers. These are well-paying jobs with benefits, but it seems that, the trades have gotten, you're going to send everybody to college, and that's great. And I think it's wonderful. I think education is a great thing. But after high school, maybe it's just not for everybody. And trust me, the trades, we need people. You're going to need plumbers, electricians, and mechanics, and machinists, and engineers, and all of that. We need those people. So if that's something you want to do, like earlier said, Gus said too, sometimes you got to try different things out and see what you like. You sometimes coming out of high school, you might not know what you like. So try a few different things, and if you try one thing and that's not what you like, then try something else, and eventually it'll click. That's the only kind of advice I would give anybody. Thanks.
It's great advice. We're gonna have Jack and then Karen.
One of the things I'd like to say to educators out there, drop the box. I graduated 4th in my class and was immediately told I had to go to college, when what I really wanted to do was go to BOCES and take my cosmetology license. At the end of the day, I went back to the passion I had, and I think educators need to listen to the passion children have, or young adults have, sorry, to understand where they want to be going in their lives. At that point in time, no one thinks you actually really know what you want to do, but there are some out there who do, and that passion needs to be heard and it needs to be responded to. Had I been allowed to go to cosmetology school then, this career path probably would have had a different trajectory. And also, as a senior national educator for Paul Mitchell, the other thing that we also realize is when people say I want to be a cosmetologist, it's not because I can't do anything else. It's because I have a passion for artistic expression through hair and makeup. And we have to stop degrading a job because people think that's not a job that's not a job that people should be doing. At the end of the day, when we were with Paul Mitchell, that was the idea of raising cosmetologists up to a level of PhD because of the level of education we have to take. So at the end of the day, really examine what your students are saying to you.
Thank you. Karen.
I don't know, Joe. I'm thinking about looking into auto mechanics after that. I would say to the educators and guidance counselors, I wish I had, even my band director had no idea really how to guide me. Jack, you said too, to really listen to students. I was very shy and quiet. Maybe I didn't express myself enough. I don't even remember talking to a guidance counselor more than 5 minutes in high school. But nobody knew how to guide somebody into an artistic field. I did not go to music and art. It was just a public school in Connecticut. We had a big band program, which was great, but I was so unprepared my freshman year. It was, I cried. I just cried for weeks because I felt like all these kids had gone to Juilliard pre-college and they had been playing in orchestras and they'd been doing all this great stuff while I was, doing academics and in marching band. And I thought I was at the top of my game in East Lyme, Connecticut, but then everybody from, the creme de la creme is all together. And it was a really tough time. So if somebody, if the guidance counselor or a teacher had just said, look, this is what it's going to be like, and this is what you need to prepare, I would have been way better off just having a more realistic idea of what to expect and even how much work I was going to have to put into it. So I would, guidance counselors, teachers, if you have a student like that who's a very serious music student, or even someone you might suspect is very serious, but you might not really understand the depth of their passion, look into it, read up on it, talk to somebody who's in the profession so that you can be a real help to that student. Because they don't come around that much. People do this for fun and then they leave it alone. So it's not that common, but they're still out there. It's always going to be out there.
Awesome. So I think that's going to round out our Q&A. I'm sure that we're going to get more questions as folks see the live after we conclude this live session. So that being said, I know how to get in contact with everyone. So does Janella and all the coordinators who made today happen. So it's very likely that we'll get questions after the fact. So just a heads up to everyone that's on here. But before we wrap, I definitely want to give everyone an opportunity, because I want to pose this closing question to everyone, because you guys have remarkable stories about how you got where you are. And for kids in high school right now, young people who are in high school right now, and really are just trying to figure out what to do next, what advice would you give the next wave of young people who are coming into the workforce, either after high school or after college, about advocating for themselves in the workplace through a union? What advice would you give them? Anyone can chime in.
Oh, go ahead, Leah. I've talked more than you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. So my advice would be, you should be able to advocate for yourself. You have to know your job. Know what your job is and what your job is not. Because some employers will say, well, because you're a secretary, you're supposed to do this in my field. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. This is not what I'm supposed to do as a secretary. So you should know what your job is and what your job is not. And also, the next thing I would say is that have a respectable relationship with your supervisor and your colleagues. That way, if you have an issue, you can go to your supervisor and discuss the issue. Or if you have an issue with your colleagues, you can go to them and say, well, John, I'm having this issue with you. So in order to advocate for yourself, yes, you have to know what your job is and what your job is not. And you also have to have respectable and an open relationship with your supervisors. That's what I would say.
Thanks, Leah. Anyone else want to add to that?
This is Sterling. I would say for the young people out there is let your passion be your paycheck. But how do you get there? How do you do that? You do that, number one, by continuing to have the vision and the imagination where you can see yourself in the job and the career that you want for yourself. In addition to that, have faith. Your teachers have faith in you. Your parents have faith in you. All of us have faith in you, but ultimately you have to have faith in yourself. And last but not least, is going to take some goals, some short-term and long-term goals to get there. But if you take those fundamental things and those building blocks, you're well on your way to being able to be successful. But last but not least, what your teachers and what everyone wants to do is they give you the TLC. Your parents know it as tender loving care, but your teachers know it as giving you the ability to think, that T, the L for listen and learn, and also making sure that C is knowing that you have to make a choice every day, and with that choice comes a consequence. But if you make some good choices, you're going to have some positive consequences. So that's my word to the young people out there.
Thanks, Sterling. Steph, I know that you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah. I would say maybe two things. I agree with everything everyone's already saying. One is that you should always look out for other people too, not just yourself. I think that gets you a long way, right? Even in little things, if someone has an issue at school, or like if you're working a job while you're still in school, asking your friend if you can like help support them and like go to the manager or go to the teacher with them, or ask that of other people. I think those are some things that actually really bode well for people in the long run, because people will come back to you and support you in your goals and in your aspirations. And then the other thing is, I would say don't shortchange yourself. If something feels wrong, it's not everything's easy about being in a workplace with a union or without. Don't shortchange yourself. If it feels wrong, you should speak up. Ask people to speak up with you, talk about it with other people. I think communication is super important. So don't feel like you have to keep things to yourself. Start creating that community amongst the students in your school or amongst the workers in your workplace. And, you can take action in that way, and in little ways or in big ways.
Thanks for that, Steph. Jen, did you want to say something? I think I saw your hand up.
Kind of just piggybacking on what Steph said. So the entertainment business is a funny place where one day you can be the star of the show and the next day you're praying that the phone will ring. So yes, take care of each other, because be nice to people on your way up because you're going to want them to be nice to you on your way down. And then when you go back up again, you'll all be nice again. Relationships are obviously a big way to make contacts. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a call just because somebody liked me once in a day in school. People I haven't talked to in years because they just were like, hey, she'd be perfect because she was really nice in this situation. At this point in the world, we just all need to take care of each other no matter what. So, but it definitely in your careers, and especially the entertainment business, you're going to see them again in different aspects.
Thanks for that, Jen. Karen, I know that you also wanted to say something, so keep this entertainment train going.
Yeah, well, very well put, Jen. Absolutely. You are going to run into the same people over and over again, and they're going to remember if you performed well and if you were nice. It's not all, it's about how well you perform, but it is also about relationships. And when those big contractors put together Broadway orchestras, it's not just how people play, it's who gets along with who. And one troublesome person sitting in a pit about 2 inches away from everybody else night after night after night can get, it can cause a lot of trouble. So that's very, very, very important, how you treat your colleagues, even if you don't like them. You've got to remember that it's a chain, every job leads to another job or not, and you don't want to break that chain. And the other thing I would tell students is to get ready for rejection. And that's, look, in any profession, you're going to get criticized. Know when it crosses the line, and that's where the union comes in. When criticism becomes bullying, some things like that, your antenna will go up. But a certain amount of rejection in the arts is absolutely every single big star can tell you stories of rejection on the way up and back down. So steel yourself against that at a young age, and I think you'll be fine. And get to know your union early and what they do, and look at contracts, even though you may not have any interest whatsoever at this point. Take a look at what that contract says and what it looks like and the language, and ask questions. You don't have to wait until you're well into your career to start looking at that stuff. So if you're lucky enough to have a job at a young age, just go into the building and start talking to people and say, what does this mean? And pull that contract down and say, I didn't know this. What is this union security clause? What does this mean? So ask questions and be tough even if you're not.
Go ahead, Jack.
Just to cap off the entertainment fun of this, working on Broadway, one of the things we always experience is feeling like a family. And as union members, we're all brothers and sisters, so we're all one big family. Sometimes happy, sometimes not. But you remember that this is the family you're in. These are the people who you choose to work with and who you want to continue to work with, and you want them to have your back the same way they're going to have yours. So again, it's just really respect those relationships you'll come across in the union family.
Thanks for that, Jack. Does anyone else have any final thoughts, any advice for young people going into the workforce?
I've got one good one, I think. Recognize that you have a certain shield when you're young. You can walk up to anyone at any job and say, hi, I just graduated high school, or I'm in high school, I think I want to do this. Will you tell me about what you do? Right? If I did that to somebody, they would ask me to leave, maybe not so politely, right? But you are the future, and I think most people see that. Most people recognize that. Talk to everyone you can. Practice your elevator pitch on them and ask them what they think. They may give you some good advice. They might connect you with someone who will hire you. They might give you an idea that you haven't had before. So really use that while you're young. And then the second thing is always follow the money. You will eventually have a boss who will be telling you something. And a lot of the time they have your best interest at heart. But in addition, this is why we need the labor movement to make sure that that the interests of the workers and the collective are put first, and to make sure that that we have each other's backs. So always lean on your coworkers, and make sure that you're asking questions critically about where the money comes from and who has what incentive to say what.
Yeah, Joe. You're on mute, Joe.
I used this line my first time for a job interview, and you're free to use it yourself. When they asked me, I said to them, if you hire me and you don't like the way I work, you can fire me in 2 weeks. But trust me, you're going to like the way I work. And it worked for me. It worked for me over 40 years ago. So always believe in yourself. Always believe in yourself.
Thanks for that, Joe. Anyone else before we close out have our final thoughts? Don't be shy. Going once, going twice. All right, Janella, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to say thank you to every single person that has joined us on this panel. Zio, thank you for leading our conversation and facilitating our conversation so beautifully. But to each and every one of you, Steph, Jen, Denise, Jack, Eric, Leah, Gus, Karen, Joe, and Sterling, thank you so much for spending the time with us this afternoon to talk about the work that you do and to talk about your experiences in the labor movement and to give some words of wisdom to the young people that we are working with. We don't talk about it often enough, how important it is to work together, right? And how difficult it would be to work out my health and safety issues with a principal versus the entire school doing the conversation with the principal, right? Or an entire production negotiating benefits for a staff instead of fighting that fight on our own. That's the power of the union. And in this time we need to really think about how we can most successfully support and work with one another, whether that's in the workplace or in our communities where we live. And so again, thank you for your participation today. We are so grateful to you. And for the students that are watching and the counselors and teachers, we have YouTube links that are available on the Future in Focus YouTube page. You can click on those links and find out about a little bit more about the work that's done. So we have some of our panelists that have done videos, as well as others who were not able to participate with us in person today, but they have shared videos of the work that they do. So check that out. You'll also be able to check this video out again if you want to come back to it in the future. And again, thank you all for doing this with us today. This was our first attempt at doing this virtually, and we know we're only going to grow from here. So we want to thank all of you, and thanks to our partners at the New York City Department of Education in the Queens North and Queens South offices, and Amy Arundel, who is the borough rep of the Queens UFT office. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for your participation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Angel and
Bye.
Steve.